Today, my loosely defined topic will be Zen Dogs. I have a fairly, let's just say, I have a lifelong evolving relationship with man's best friend. Uh, and I'm going to tie this into something. But anyway, my grandparents, there was a lot of kids back in the 60s when I was just starting right before kindergarten, and we lived with my grandparents. And my grandparents, so it was my mom, my dad, and my three brothers and my grandparents in one 3-bedroom house in Hawthorne. And then on the holidays, when my mom's brother and his kids would come, then we kind of topped out at about, we'd add another 5 to that. So we got a dozen people in the house at the holidays. And kids are crazy at that age because everybody's, well, just the oldest are just starting kindergarten. Anyway, they had a dog. Their dog's name was Weelo. He was wee and he was low. He was Pekingese. And he as a kid, I remember the stories about him, and that as a puppy, he was messing around under a bed and ran and got startled and hit the corner of the bedpost. So he only had one eye. And this made him a little nervous, especially around 6 or so kids who were, under the age of certainly consent, but under the age of kindergarten. And it was his house, and he would lay around and kind of try to stay out of the fray, but that's hard to do in a small house with a lot of kids. And, I don't think you could officially claim to be part of the family as a kid unless you were nipped by him at least once, whether it was an ankle or a toe or something like that. And of course, back in the day, it wasn't Weelo's fault. It was the kids' fault. You know what I mean? I mean, they were, they were out there. It's his space. Weelo needs his space. So this kind of set up a situation for me where, although Weelo was a rather harmless looking dog, I'd seen him bite both my brothers and 2 of my cousins. So I was definitely careful around Weelo. Then we moved. Then we got our own house, and we moved to San Pedro. And it was a brand new house, and I just finished kindergarten, and so now I was starting a new class in the 1st grade. And we were in this new neighborhood with all kinds of new people, with all kinds of kids. And 3 doors down lived Crackers. Crackers was a German Shepherd. The family that owned him didn't tend much to care about whether the gate was locked to the backyard or not locked to the backyard. And we used to play on the street. We used to get together football games and baseball games, and whatever happened on the street, because the playground was too far to walk, and we could just step out there and all get together and do whatever we were going to do. But pandemonium ensued when you could hear down the block, Crackers is loose. People would run for cover because Crackers had a habit of chasing kids, and chasing kids on bikes were particularly attractive for Crackers. So, and I had 2 brothers get bit by him, and I was just generally terrified of Crackers, kind of as it goes. And so that kind of sets the stage for things. And before I started this practice, I would walk every day in Huntington Beach. It was a great way to kind of detox from my day. And so at about 4:30, 5 o'clock, I'd go out to the beach and walk along the boardwalk there. And it was a great way to, in my mind, kind of moderate my behavior so that I didn't bring all that nonsense home to my family. And one of the things that bothered me most of all was people on the boardwalk without their dogs on a leash. This kind of assumption that these people had that I'd be glad to have their dog run up to me, and most of the time it was okay, but dogs are playful little characters, and they like to kind of run at you like they're gonna maybe make a move. I mean, that's kind of in their DNA. And I found myself getting pretty worked up about this, and telling people, hey, you should put that dog on a leash because A, there's a law, and some people don't appreciate having your dog run at them. And they, of course, laughed and said, no, that's no way. You're crazy. Everybody loves my dog. They didn't say that, but that's exactly what they were thinking. So this happened. And this was, like I say, beginning, before I really started this practice of meditation, daily meditation, and coming up here and kind of studying Buddhism. And that was kind of the peak of the thing, because I thought to myself, you know what? All this nonsense, I am really scared of dogs. I have a physiological reaction to a dog running at me, and it's not positive. So that's kind of by way of setup. Now, how do we make my evolving or my fraught situation with dogs? How can we relate that to Buddhism? Well, I was on the YouTubes, and if you get a chance and are interested, there is a speaker on YouTube called Mitra Roshi. Mitra means spiritual friend in Sanskrit. Mitra Roshi is a woman who, I think she's got to be, I think she might be in her 80s. And she is a very well-spoken, no nonsense man. If I was in a tough situation and needed a Zen teacher, she's like hard as nails, I'm pretty sure. And so she was the attendant for many years and studied under Philip Kapleau. And I don't know if you know Philip Kapleau. Philip Kapleau wrote one of the most used or referenced books in the 60s to Zen meditation. The book was called 3 Pillars of Zen. Roshi, my Roshi, puts it highly on his recommended list. And it takes you through, much like my experience with dogs, it takes you through a very fraught description of these individuals who are learning meditation in Japan. His background quickly is he was a translator at Nuremberg, the Nuremberg trials. He then moved to be a translator at the Tokyo trials for the Japanese. And Mitra Roshi has some very interesting observations about him as a person and his life as he got older and all these other good things. But this description of the Herculean efforts employed by these students to achieve a breakthrough, a kensho, an enlightenment breakthrough, a kensho, is really the basis of the book. And I have another opinion about the book, and someday, and I know Larry knows what it is, and someday I might talk about my opinion of the book, but I don't think that really matters in this story, because in this story, what they're all doing is doing koan work, which is part of the Renzai tradition that we do here. But because Roshi has dual ordinations, both in Soto and Renzai, Soto is Japanese, and his Renzai, 2 Renzai ordinations were in the Vietnamese tradition, Lam Te. So he knows and has used in his teachings both Soto, Shinkantaza, which is just sitting. That's what it means in Japanese. And he's used that. And he's used He's used koans when he feels they would be useful to the student. But he's not one of these guys who runs a koan practice where, okay, here are the 150 koans. Have you figured out one, and have you figured out three and four and two, and so it's like a competitive sort of situation figuring out koans, and a lot of people maybe lose a little track of what we should really be using koans for. Anyway, the koan they're working on in Three Pillars of Zen is ma. Now, a lot of people mispronounce it as mu, but it is mu. Now, you're given this koan, and then you take this koan and you solve it. You incorporate it. You, in the best of cases, become the koan. And it's a very simple story. And the story features a revered Chinese Zen master, Joshu. And Joshu is having how they did this back in China in the day was a public discussion. So it would be like this. Followers of Zen, monks in these situations, because most of them were in monasteries, a monk would ask him a question and he would give an answer. And then that would start some discussion, and the group would then go and sit meditation for as long as it took for you to really break through and understand and realize the koan. So the question the monk asked is, does a dog have Buddha nature? Now, Buddha nature is something that is debated forever within Buddhism. And for this discussion, let's just use the idea that all sentient beings possess, and that's not a good word, all sentient beings may come to understand a calling to Buddhism. And that is their Buddha nature expressing itself. So he asks, does a dog have Buddha nature? And Joshu says simply, ma, in Chinese. Ma. Well, ma means no. If you do a little research on this koan, you find out that at another time in another place, Joshu is asked the same question. And he responds, wa. Well, wa means yes. Same question, two different answers. Other people have posited that the idea that what he's actually doing with, I don't know which one, ma or wa, but it's kind of used in traditional Chinese as an onomatopoeia or whatever, like a bark to go, woo, right? So now I've given you one koan with three different historical answers to it. What's that mean, really? Well, I think it is indicative of a key teaching of Buddhism. And that teaching relates to impermanence. And the idea there is that nothing is fixed. Even the answer to this question is not fixed, because Buddhist teachings are known for being a dialogue. And this shows that dialogue in action to a certain degree. Because circumstances, the place and time, the general, the what the student brings to the question in the master's mind. The other thing I think that's important to this, that makes me think of this in context, is back in the day in China, when this koan was kicking around, the a dog was the lowest creature you could possibly be. And obviously, since then, dogs have had some pretty kick-ass PR. I mean, people love dogs. They're man's best friend. But in China, when this question was asked, does a dog have Buddha nature? A dog was seen as not worthy of anything, a low being, a low creature, even among animals. A dog was thought of as not worthy, certainly of something as elevated as this idea of Buddha nature, or has the capacity to, at some point, be, access this Buddha nature. But like I say, Buddhism has no scriptures. The founder of Buddhism, Bodhidharma, who legend has it, brought Buddhism either over the Himalayas on a weekend hike, or hopped in a speedboat, making a bit of a lame joke here, and then went around Southeast Asia and landed on the east coast of China, and he's a legend because maybe he wasn't one guy. Maybe his stories have been combined of 2 or 3 Bodhidharmas. Bodhidharma is a pretty famous name. It means enlightened teacher. So if you were going to teach, it'd be almost like Coca-Cola as far as a brand name. You'd kind of know what you got with that sort of a name. And Bodhidharma said that Zen is a transmission outside the sutras, outside the scriptures, not relying on words and letters. That's another talk. Not relying on words and letters, but by pointing directly to one's own mind, it lets one see one's true nature, thus Buddhahood. So he's saying stories by monks and preaching by monks and reading the Lavangatara Sutra or reading Nagarjuna or what, all that. Zen is about the experience of Kensho, the experience of getting a taste of enlightenment, seeing for a split second what your true nature really consists of and how that relates to the true nature of everything around you. And once again, this other idea of impermanence is built into Buddhism. The fact that things are constantly changing, just like those flags out there blowing in the wind. They don't stop. They're constantly moving. They're constantly changing their position. And this is a thing that I think is a pretty dependable thing to understand about Buddhism, because a lot of people see this and think, oh, impermanence, oh my gosh, that's horrible. That means I'm going to die and you're going to die and we're all going to die. And that's just a bummer to me. So I'm going to resist that. But the purpose of impermanence is to focus our attention on the present moment. This idea, and you've heard it all over the place in pop psychology and other Buddhist texts that this present moment is all we have. To dwell in the past, we can't do anything about that. To obsessively think about the future doesn't really do us very much good, because the future isn't here. And if we're not present in the present moment, we're not going to be ready for the future. We can't be dwelling on what we might have done differently in the past, because that's gone. So the idea of impermanence can be a very powerful teaching in Buddhism. So that's why we're going to bring things just up to date here. Last weekend, because Roshi was not feeling well, he asked me to attend a Buddha's birthday celebration in Ontario at Quang Tien, and the teacher there is a really a friend of this center and a friend of Roshi himself, so I was a little honored that he said that I could that I could attend on his behalf, and it was a beautiful day. They have a very, like just about every Vietnamese temple I've ever been to, very devout bunch of followers, generous, kind, very, very devout Buddhists. So I get there, and I've been there before, but I think the last time I was there, it was a nighttime service or something. So I got to look at the place a little better, and it's really sweetly done. It's 3 houses in a row in Ontario, and there's the backyards are joined, and there's a big platform up for the monks, and so I was pretty early. And I went over to, it's almost like a little backyard tiki bar that they had set up for monks to just kind of hang out before things happened and have a cup of tea and just kind of chill and get a look at the crowd and see all the people there and how excited they were to celebrate Buddha's birthday. Much like up here for the Buddha's birthday. If you've ever been to that, you should check it out. It's really cool. This place there's 100 people here or more, 200 some years. And they're all very devout and they're very, very, very enamored with Roshi. They love him. Because he's worked in the Vietnamese community in Orange County for years. And so they all remember him. And so there's all these people. I'm having my tea, just kind of chilling in the monks' tiki bar. And like I say, there's a big way that we enter, and there's a big platform for all the monks. There's 25 monks there. And the tables are set out. It's all outdoor because they've got so many people. They have a temple indoors, but they couldn't hold the capacity of all these people. So I'm there, I'm having my tea, and there are lay people who are getting the monks their tea and making sure that they've got everything they need and they're doing okay, because we're not going to start for another 20 minutes, half an hour. And one of the guys who's very nicely dressed, and I noticed looking out the little door there's a step up and there's a wiener dog out there. And the guy basically kind of gives him the foot, you know what I mean? Doesn't kick him, he just blocks him from going in there. And the wiener dog is not stopped by this. He kind of does a lazy circle around and makes another run at it. And the guy's left, so he comes up, sniffs me, and he's a little wiener dog, so he's kind of cute, and he's got a harness on. He's somebody's wiener dog. He's not a wild, feral wiener dog. And he then goes over to see some of the other monks on the other side, and those monks are not Wiener Dog fans. They just like, they shoo him out of there, and he goes out of there, and then so there are many other monks come, and Min Young, who's the abbot of this temple, comes and greets all the monks warmly and bows down to one of the monks who has a temple over in Pomona near him. They're good friends. He and Roshi are very close friends. And he was very sweet. He asked me how Roshi was doing. And so then we do the procession. We process onto the platform, down the aisle with all the people on the sides, and get up there. And I kind of don't know what I'm doing, because that's kind of my thing. And they keep pointing for me to sit in a certain chair. So, okay, I'll sit in the chair. It's way too visible for me personally. It's the chairs are like this, but they're set. There's a carpet in the middle. There's a large couple of 3 Buddhas up against the wall, and there's a big carpet, and there's 5 monks on one side, 5 monks on the other side, and probably another 5 to 7 monks behind them. So 2 rows back. And we're going to do the chanting. And the chanting was really remarkable, actually, because I like chanting, but don't have a good ear for the Vietnamese language. But these people did such a fine job with the chanting that it really just moved me into the whole space, and it was wonderful. And I'm listening to this and meditating there in my chair, and I open my eyes a little bit briefly, and there's the Wiener Dog. Yeah. He's laying right on my feet, all kind of stretched out, and kind of digging the whole thing. I mean, I had a hard time not cracking up, but I just took good notes and thought, there's the Wiener Dog. And thought to myself, that dog may have Buddha nature. The Wiener Dog then left of his own volition. And I saw there were many cameras around photographing all the monks and all the pageantry and whatnot. And those guys, I could see right across to them, and they were laughing quite loud at something going on under the platform. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that was the Wiener Dog in action, doing something around there that was getting their attention. So the chanting goes on. The chanting goes on for probably close to an hour. And I am really continuing to enjoy the whole experience. And we're towards the end a little bit here. There's a group of probably a dozen or more kids came up and performed a vocal song that they wrote called April Moon. It was very lovely, to traditional kind of Vietnamese music. And so sometime at that, probably just before that, when we were still meditating, I once again opened my eyes, and the dog was back, right there on the ground, kind of splitting the difference between me and the monk next to me, really enjoying the Buddha's birthday celebration. And it made me think a little bit about, how far my practice has come. But then that's really the way of everybody's practice, that we all move through life. And if we're lucky, we move through life and our closely held views, our prejudices, our anger, the things that really bug us, we get a better handle on, because we've used our meditation to create some space between those feelings that we've got and have been built up and have been layered over the years. And when we get some space between these deep, deep thoughts that are under the surface that pop up and kind of surprise us, when that happens, we're able to see them a little better for what they are. And as our meditation practice continues, we can hopefully create more space between these ideas and feelings. And when we create this space, what appears in this space? We get a glimpse of our true nature. Thank you so much.